We are recording. Okay, so first thing I want to do is share with you my PowerPoint. And of course, I do want to welcome all of you today. It is a little bit of a strange time that I picked, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but I thought it was very important to our families to have an opportunity to meet as a department prior to the decision of the distance learning, which is Thursday at 10 o'clock. And I know because I've participated in a few of the building level return and reopening meetings that a lot of you have been attending to your respective schools and really trying to make a decision that works best for your family. So I wanted to add another layer in terms of your decision making and how you're going to see the way that the special education component is going to be a part of, and a very important part that has been considered with the reopening. So most importantly, welcome home. And I look forward to welcoming home all of our kids. I would like to welcome to our home Dr. Lewis, our new superintendent, and she is on this WebEx. So welcome to the Malvern home. And I know you've been very busy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're going to love our special education family. I think we have the best family. So I hope everyone gets an opportunity to meet Dr. Lewis, and I'm looking forward to what she's going to bring to the district. So, I found this slide and I put a date on here, which was March 13th, which was that Friday. And I put the last day of school. And, that Friday morning was, I don't know, I'm sure a lot of you remember, it was extremely cold, dark, and rainy morning. And I remember driving to work feeling so uneasy about what the day had in store for planning for 2 weeks, because we thought there was a possibility that we would be out for 2 weeks. And as the day progressed and meetings were going on, the sun came out. It turned out to be a beautiful day that day. And I thought really this was going to be maybe not as scary as I thought it would be. And as we all know, from that point forward, it was an ever-changing situation, not only in our own homes, but in our work environment and the educational system. And a smooth sea never made a skillful sailor. And I, without trying to get too emotional, this is for all the special ed teachers and the psychologists and the social workers and the occupational therapists, because with all the banter that's out there, I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, from my professional being, that this department gave it 150% from March 13th to June 26th. And sometimes you might hear some nonsense. There's always an outlier. But I can tell you the Malvern Special Education Department did not have one outlier. And so I thank you, and I thank you for participating today. And the rest of the presentation is for the parents, but I thought it was important to express my gratitude to our department. Okay, so continuity of learning, which is very important. So when our students return to school, what is that going to look like? And again, many of you have participated in your building level meetings, so you know what the buildings are doing every step of the way. For special education, it's a little bit more intricate, and I want to explain that. So even though both Downing and Davison, all the students are coming back, the same thing is happening for our special education students, regardless of the level of support that they are receiving, regardless of the continuum of service that they are receiving, okay? That includes their related services. So all of the related services are going to be scheduled just like they have been scheduled in the past when the students are in the building. And I will address what related services will look like for those students that choose or their parents choose for them not to be in the building. In the middle school and the high school, our special education classes will be in 5 days per week. So another term that you may hear referred to the special education classes would be self-contained. So our students that are in a 12-1-1, students that are in the 15-1-1, those students will be returning 5 full days per week. Those classes, obviously being capped at those numbers, made it tad easier to design the class with all the distancing that was required as part of the guidance document. The integrated classes, also known as ICT or inclusion, those are going to be aligned with the hybrid model that has been outlined by the middle school and will be outlined by the high school tonight. What we will be doing is that, as you know, for any parent whose child receives integrated co-teaching, they will have that inclusion support period or study skills period. It's the same thing, it's just called something different in the middle school and high school. That will occur every day. So that support with the special education teacher will occur every day. And what will that look like? Well, so let's say 7th period, the students have inclusion support or study skills. For those students that are in the building, they'll be in room, let's say 205, and those students that are home, they will log into WebEx, and the special education teacher will do a mini lesson with them and set them up for the day, and then go to the students that are in the building. And then when those students swap the next day, they will work with them based off of reviewing and providing explicit feedback for the work that they did on their own as it pertains to their goals. And that's exactly what we're doing for the resource room, also in the middle school and high school. So as you know, the resource room students are in general education classes all day, except for one period of resource room. So they will follow along with that hybrid model. However, they will get the resource room every day, whether they are in the building or whether through WebEx. And as I mentioned, related services are going to be what has already been identified on their IEP that we developed during annual reviews. With the student being in the building, that 5 days a week, that will remain the same. For those students in the middle school and high school that are on the hybrid model, if it happens to fall on a day in that week that is where they're home, we will automatically go on WebEx with them. So the students are very familiar in the middle school and high school with WebEx, and this is how we did the related services with them March through June. So this will be a very easy, because some weeks it might be they're in the building and they'll have, let's say, speech and language in the building, and then the next week, based on the AB schedule, it may be on a WebEx. So September is going to be about, one of the things is going to be about collecting data. And we are going to do that through STAR, through iRead, through System 44, 180, through diagnostic tools that the individual teachers want to use. And for the parents that, you know, depending on what age your child is, some of those programs are more applicable to your child is. So for example, iRead is something that we use in our special education classes at Downing. STAR is something that we have K through 12. So that is something that we will be able to use. Quick 30 minutes, we'll be able to get a starting point of where the student is, both in reading and mathematics. So there's always going to be the consideration of adjusting the IEP goals. And what I would suggest, and what some of my colleagues are doing, is that we because September is going to be about getting acclimated and a lot of establishing new routines in terms of getting down into the IEP goal work, that we would give it a little bit of time before we decide or a parent requests to come back to committee and redesign or tweak or reconsider an IEP goal. But if based on the data that we gather in September, based on parent information and through starting to work with your child, we feel that that IEP goal that we put on the IEP as a committee last spring is not something that is going to be attainable, then we can and we will go back to committee and as a collective group determine goals that should be on your child's IEP. So we're also going to be progress monitoring like we've been doing every other year. And many of you know that our progress monitoring is very intensive. And so we're going to have a lot of information that we left the school with last year and that we also will have entering. There will have to be some dialogue about regression and what substantial regression looks like. So when the guidance part 200 regulations talks about regression, it talks about being able to recoup skills that you had and that it is taking you longer than 8 to 10 weeks to show that skill. So if a student had a skill and, both you as a family, both, the classroom teacher or related service provider really felt like that your child had a good handle in terms of that skill acquisition. And now we do some early assessments and we feel that they haven't. We are going to give them a little bit of time to get back into the swing of things. But if we need to have dialogue about substantial regression, that would be another reason why we would, or you can request a CSC meeting. We are going to pick up on our reevaluations or triennials, and those are going to be done in person with all the protective equipment, and we'll talk about the health and safety of that. And this year, or at least for the start of the year, all of our CSC meetings are going to be via WebEx. And most of you know that annual review season was right at this time, and our teams didn't miss a beat. So most of you participated in the annual reviews through the WebEx model. And so, we're going to continue doing that so that we have less people coming into the buildings and people are staying with their cohorts and staying in their locations and not changing things. And I do believe that's going to make it even more advantageous for families and not having to take off of work and being able to maybe find a quiet location and participate via WebEx. So health and safety, which is obviously incredibly important. So when we look at related services, and we're talking about, there are a multitude of related services, and not to minimize any, but some of the bigger ones that we have, counseling, speech and language, occupational therapy, physical therapy, vision services, hearing services. Whenever those services are going to be provided, they are going to be wearing masks, both the student and the provider. We are going to have those clear masks available where you can see the mouth movement. And that would be for those situations. I'm sure there's more, but particularly for when students are working on articulation, and it's critical that you see the lips and where the tongue movement is. They will also be provided with face shields to go over the masks, as well as the sneeze guards. And Bobby and Jimmy, our wonderful creative grounds guys, are making a lot of these so that we can see how it is to put them on the tabletop, and so that they're not bulky, and that if they want to work closer with a student, there's something very accessible and available to have on a desk. There's also, if you look at this picture, that is going to be put on top of the horseshoe tables for those related service providers that use that in their offices or classrooms. Cohorting. As you know, we're really trying to keep the students with the same cohorts from the moment they walk into the room to school to the moment they leave. So when we are scheduling our students for related services, we are going to strongly consider the cohort, but we also have to consider the needs because we are working on individual goals and the needs of individual students. We are going to be cognizant of that. And so we may come to you and say, I don't have an appropriate grouping. Could we have your permission and perhaps change this group to an individual? Or I have a great group now. Would you like to consider that? So it is going to be a great deal of ongoing dialogue between the families and us. Oftentimes our related service providers, particularly our psychologists, meet with kids during the lunchtime. We are going to try to reduce that as much as possible because, as we know, when students are eating, they are not going to have their masks on and things are going, more possibility of transmission is going to occur. So we are going to really try to avoid that during lunchtime. Air conditioning. So if a student has air conditioning mandated on their IEP, that is going to be provided. And we are going to, of course, keep the windows open as much as possible to foster the flow of air. Our monitors who are essential to the success of your children. And I see that many of our monitors are on this WebEx. And during the school year, your child really depends on, some of your children depend on our monitors, for everything in terms of working on helping develop their independent skills, staying on task, organizational skills. And they really become a part of the special education family. So we, of course, want to make sure that with the close proximity that they are going to have frequently with our students, that they are equally as safe as everybody else. So, masks will be worn at all times. Gloves will be provided to them if need be. Particularly for when we may have to be aware of a student where elopement is an issue, and traditionally we would be holding their wrist in terms of the hallways, even though they won't be in the hallway as much, but coming off the bus or going to a parent at the end of the day, we will be certainly making sure that they have the masks and gloves available to them. The test centers that we have, when we are using them, everyone's going to be wearing a mask. It's not just going to be when tests are being read. And where we can, we're also going to reduce the adult to student ratio, meaning that, we have a certain amount of monitors that are in the test center. And if we can add more support in the test center, we're going to do that so that maybe we could spread the students out more, so that 6-foot distance is being accommodated, and less distractions, and to do everything possible to keep the numbers low when providing the accommodations. So the beginning of the school year, it's always about procedures and routines, but this year it's going to be about new procedures and routines. I'm sure a lot of you have been doing your due diligence and reading up on, different ways that you can positively support if your child is returning to school wearing masks all day, how they may be in the same room all day, eating lunch in the same room. So I'm sure you're doing your fair share, but that's going to also be a huge part of how we are going to start September in terms of how do you wear a mask, when do you wear a mask, and why. And one of the big ways to do that is through social stories. And when you think about a social story, some of you may think of it more in line with students on the autism spectrum. But I really want you to think about yourself and when you are in a new situation and how you can successfully get through that. You really do a lot of self-talk, and you self-talk in a positive way. you self-talk in a sequential way. And so that's something that we are going to do with any of our students that really need to understand the change in what our procedures and our practices are going to be. So I just want to give you an example of how easy it is to find social stories on YouTube, as well
wearing a mask, a social narrative for
social stories that you can find that are just on paper and, you know, written, and you can either print them out as little booklets. I'm not going to, it's not long. It's a minute and a half. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I just want you to get an understanding.
children. Sometimes adults and kids need to wear masks to protect other people from getting sick. This might be something new for me. Masks might feel kind of uncomfortable at first, but I will get used to it. Even when I wear a mask, it is still important to stay 6 feet away from other people. It is still okay to touch and hug my family. I usually don't need to wear a mask in my home or my yard. If I go to a store or to an appointment.
Okay, so you have an idea of what that sounds like and looks like in terms of a social story. And all you have to do is Google social story with the particular topic that you want, and it will give you some examples, whether you go on YouTube or you just go on Google, and it would give you a printed version of that. So that's going to be something that we really focus in on. And then how do I use the Malvern app? So the older students that are going to, that we're going to be working on a lot more independence. I spoke to Mr. Nelson, and he said that we would be able to give some of our students access to the app ahead of time so that they could practice it, so that when they're walking in, the nerves and the hustle and bustle and, things that, we want, of course, as independent as possible, the kids, we can do that. So if anybody would like to talk about that further, we'll definitely have my email address at the end if you don't have it already. Okay, social emotional. For the teachers and the related service providers that are on this call, the picture on the left is something that I sent you, probably email number 51, and it talks about things that we can control and things that we can't control. So in the beginning of the year, the school is going to be about reflection, because I think it's important that we do reflect way back to March 13th and we move forward. And it's important to help our students at an age-appropriate level process what they experienced. And everybody's experience is not the same. I think Ms. Gross may have used the visualization of the boats. I know I've seen that also as something, about having different boats, but being a part of the same storm. And we are going to make ourselves available, not just for the students that have mandated counseling, but for any parent that feels that this has been traumatizing, that this has been changing for their child, or that they were okay with the distance learning part of it, but now coming back has been problematic. We are going to create a system that will make it easier for you to reach out and express your concerns, and then we can talk to you and then have your permission to meet with the kids. For our students that do have mandated counseling on their IEP goals, the whole concept of what they've experienced and how to cope with it and how to move forward from it is going to be the theme of the initial part of their counseling. And also being able to continuously provide our families with resources as we open our doors and as things continue to evolve. So for our families that may be on this call, that their child does not attend school in the Malvern School District, I think it's important to address how we are going to continue to support you. And so, for example, we may have students that based on their IEP recommendations, our in-district programs were not able to meet their child's needs. We have been communicating and contacting those families to find out which model they would like to go with for their child. So if their child is at BOCES or their child is in a neighboring school district, in terms of whether they want the full day program that has been offered, if it happens to be a hybrid model, or if they're going to go with the distance model. And so it's important for any of those families that are on this call that if they haven't made that decision, the deadline seems to be pretty similar. I know, as I keep saying, Malvern hours is Thursday at 10 o'clock. If you haven't had any contact with your school, please do not hesitate to reach out to me, and I will get the information if I don't have it already, but I do have most of that information. And just be aware and continue to be aware of those cutoffs. So I know when our Malvern families in the building make a commitment to the distance learning, it is going to be for the first marking period. So you have to be aware of what that school district is doing and in terms of their cutoffs, because of course we want to make sure that if your child is going back to school or is going to school, that we are able to provide them with the transportation if you want it, because they are entitled. For our families that are parentally placed in private schools, we will continue to provide them with related services. And the majority of those related services are going to be through WebEx. And the reason why the majority of that is going to happen, excluding resource room, is that a lot of our providers go from multiple buildings, and we really want to try not to bring too many people into the private schools that are, because they too are working diligently on cohorting the students. So if you haven't already opted in or decided not, with the bus transportation, when I have this PowerPoint available on the website, you can click on this link and it'll bring you right to the form. Okay, so for our families that are now up to the last part of their decision-making for the voluntary distance learning for first quarter, I want to talk a bit about what that is going to look like. So for Downing and Davison Avenue, when we're talking about integrated co-teaching or resource room, they will be participating in the grade level distance learning class, and they will get the support from the special education teacher. So if they're getting resource room, they would get their resource room period via WebEx. For our students that, those families that have not reached our 6th grade yet, once our students hit 6th grade, we do provide them with an inclusion support period where it's just the students in special education together working on reinforcing skills. So for those students that are doing the voluntary distance learning, they are going to have that one period with just the special education as well, special education teacher as well. For our students in special class, again, other people know the terminology as a self-contained program. The schedule is going to align with their grade level peers, so they will be participating somewhat on WebEx, somewhat with Seesaw, and also in their specials with their grade level peers. And they will have specific time set aside within the 8-period day to work with a special education teacher, focusing in on their IEP goals. Related services at that point, which I did mention earlier on, will be through WebEx. So if the student, again, is scheduled for B days at 2 o'clock, then they will log in and they will join their provider for WebEx. And we did this kindergarten all the way through. So even our little ones were able to work through and participate on WebEx. For the middle school and high school, integrated co-teaching and resource room, it's going to align with the model that is being presented here in the middle school and what you will hear tonight at the high school. Same thing, they will have that instruction from the special education teacher that one day just through WebEx. For our special classes, their schedule will be aligned with their schedule that was pre-scheduled last year in terms of their course selection, and also provided through the special education department. Same thing for those students in the high school that are receiving related services. That will also be through WebEx. Again, if you have not made your decision about distance learning, you can hover over this, and you can also enroll. So I keep saying it, I'm sorry, but it's Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning. It says it right here. And then here we have our special education contacts. So you have myself and my office number. I have all of the psychologists that are in each building. And I also included our CPSC chair and our psychologist, Emma Kopp. If we do have parents on here that our going into kindergarten, you will have been more familiar with Ms. Kopp, because she was the one that helped with all the transition in terms of coming to kindergarten. And she's only a phone call or an email away if you want any support in making that transition. But some of you may also know Ms. Lociavo, because she was your CPSC chairperson prior to last year. So there are a lot of bridges that we have in terms of people working collectively and together in terms of knowing your kids. So with that said, I am going to take a moment and stop sharing the PowerPoint so that I can see everybody's faces again, and then be able to take some of your questions. Okay. There is everybody. Okay. All right, so everybody is on mute. So if you do have a question, if you could just unmute yourself. Again, for those of you that know me a long time, I have my marble notebook and my Ticonderoga. So if I don't have an answer for you, I'm going to jot it down, and I'm going to work hard on getting that answer to you ASAP. Okay?
Hello. Hi, good afternoon, Mrs. Martini. It's Deb
Hi.
Ferguson. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Hanging in there. We're surviving. I just had a quick question, just to reiterate. I want to make sure I'm clear. So I am choosing to keep the twins home and Vincent for the first quarter. So as far as Alex, he will be receiving the same classes as Ava, and then just will have a period that's blocked out with a special ed teacher to go over anything he's not understanding. Is that?
Okay, I'm glad you're asking for clarification on that. The students that are in special education classes at Davison and Downing are not going to be spending the day in the general education WebEx class.
Okay.
I think that would be unfair based on their IEP. And so we are specially designing their schedule. And with that, we're going to have the special education teachers working with them a couple of periods per day in a very small group to work on their IEP goals.
Awesome.
As well as assigning work on Seesaw.
Perfect.
And they will still continue to be mainstreamed for the one special.
Okay. But David in gym or whatever the special is, he'll be
WebEx, yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, great.
We are also looking at a way to maintain contact with our students that are staying home for the first 9 weeks, so that they can still feel that connection with all of us back in the buildings. That if the family, look, they're still part of our family. And so if you decide after 9-10 weeks that the next quarter you want them in school, you know, there's been like, we're getting them ready for it. They've been a part of it from the beginning.
Awesome. And one other question. So my oldest has a 504, this is his senior year. How would that work? And so I know he struggled those last few months when we were home. Mm-hmm. So the WebEx and everything was very challenging for him to follow. He's not, very self-motivated. That's part of his thing was he was very, he's very disorganized, and being in the class and having that teacher present in his face, sitting in the front row, was helpful. It was difficult on me, I want to say, for him to be home. We made it, we survived. But now he's kind of happy that I'm keeping him home the first quarter, because there is that little paranoia of, I don't want to get COVID, Mom. So I don't know. I mean, I feel that he did it, he made it, and he can do it. But is there anything that can be done in terms of, I don't know, how part of the 504 was classroom notes sent home? Will there be, I know they use a lot of different teachers use different platforms. One was using OneNote. I forget what some of the other Castle Learning.
Right. So you can always request to schedule a 504 meeting.
Okay.
Okay. And then we can look at what was placed on the accommodation plan to address your senior in the building. And then since he's not going to be in the building, then what accommodations may need to be addressed based on the medical condition in the distance learning model.
Perfect.
Okay. And just, I know we said this at a majority of our annual review meetings, but I think it's important to remind our families that do choose the distance learning model that the IEPs were to be written as if the student was in the building.
Right.
And so if your child is home and you feel that we need to meet and contingency plan, then that's what we'll do. And that's what the guidance document said. It's called a contingency plan. And so 504 really is based on a medical model, and then it should be re-looked at.
I'm sorry, one last question, Meredith. I'm so sorry. I don't mean
Okay.
Fine. Alex is due. Mr. Brawler and I spoke about him having his reevaluation, and he was hoping to do it in person, face to face, in the coming months, September, October. But again, we're choosing to keep him home. Is that something that we would just be putting on hold? Is it something that can be done virtually?
It can be done virtually.
Okay.
The report will be written as if it was done virtually. So the language in there will talk about, obviously having to not follow all the standardization methodology, but that can be done that way.
Awesome. Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks.
And listen, all of your questions are really great questions that I'm sure other parents had. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Stay healthy.
Thank you. You too.
And first of all, I wanted to thank you and all your therapists for school job at the end of the school year you did in circumstances for everyone, but I wanted to commend you all. So my question, my daughter's with me, and we decide to do the distance learning. Is it the same amount of time with the teacher on WebEx as it was in a mainstream class, or is there I'm getting the sense that there's less actual.
Yes, you are correct. It is not going to be the same amount of time with the special education teacher. And right now, our numbers are very low. Well, first of all, you all know we are in a very small school district. So our numbers, when now you take the families that are electing to do the distance learning, the numbers are low. So the benefit of that is that the teacher to student ratio is, as of maybe noon today, maybe 3 to 1. And so the amount of direct instruction you're going to get from the special education teacher rises. Okay. But it is not going to be the same as if.
So in terms of the workload would be the same if they were in the regular class. So it would be actually like the parent is doing more. If your kid needs help, the parent's actually more involved with the kid.
No, well, not necessarily, because the seesaw assignments are going to be work that they should be able to do independently. the work that they're going to do when they're working with the special education teachers, where you're really going to work on that skill development, those areas that they can't do independently and need to be taught.
Okay.
And then if anybody needs a contingency plan, we can individually talk about that.
Okay.
You're welcome. And thank you for the kind words. We appreciate it. Another question?
Hi, Mrs. Martini. It's Megan Cunningham, Declan's mom. How are you?
Yes, Cunningham.
I just am concerned, obviously, having a student who's changing schools. Is there anything put in place to help them sort of acclimate? You know, I know when I was on the call for Davison, you know, nobody was going to be allowed in the building ahead of time and no extras, you know, the thing. My concern being with, you know, the kids not understanding where do we go now and what is this temperature thing that I'm walking through and that sort of thing. So I guess I'm wondering if there's any sort of plan put in place for those kids that are transitioning buildings to understand the new protocol in the new building.
Great question. I'm going to jot that one down.
Okay.
I mean, we certainly can do, you know, photographs and set up little, you know, virtual books for them, if any parent would like that. We could maybe do a virtual tour, you know, and have it kind of pre-recorded kind of a thing. Ms. Gross, I hope you're jotting this down too.
Hi, this is Mrs. Gasol. I just want to jump on that if there could be some sort of like little video of maybe walking through, particularly that temperature screen, and if possible at all as many of the schools as possible. I think about, you know, my child going back and that being something that she might freeze on and not want to walk through.
Okay.
And just to be able to see somebody who she knows doing what it look, you know, showing what it looks like or where they're walking through those things. I think not only kids in special ed, but many kids could probably really benefit from seeing what it's going to look like, because the more evidence of reality, I think that will lessen the anxiety, not only for kids, but maybe parents as well.
Good idea. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I could too. Sorry.
Good.
The other thing is too, since he's going to have all new, and I'm sure this is true for a lot of parents, but all new aides and teachers and that sort of thing, just so I know who I'm looking for too at like drop off and stuff. I don't know if it's possible to somehow put that in the packet that comes home, or I don't know, not to make more work for anybody, but just in terms of transitioning for students in that.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Cunningham.
Hi, this is Evelyn Madera. I have 2 children in the school district, and once again, I just want to compliment the school district on the PowerPoint presentations. And we've only really had contact with Miss LaVenture as far as the social workers and the psychologists throughout COVID. And I just want to say what an amazing job Miss LaVenture did. I mean, I wanted to set some time aside and have one-on-one with her, and who knows, I may do that. But I do, just to piggyback on what the previous mom said, I do think that anything to do with an actual tour of each of the schools, I know that there was going to be X's like on the blacktop. I can conceptualize it. You know, we've actually been there, but I think the number of people, all of that, we're just like speaking it about it. But if you guys could somehow recreate that just with the teachers that are on site or the aides or the maintenance, I don't know, if you want to have volunteers, I'd come over there and stand on an X. If you can create that for each of the areas, I think, especially for my older one who is waiting for tonight's meeting before she can decide, before she will say yay or nay, I
Right.
think the more visuals we have to that, the better. But kudos to the town hall meetings that I've been participating and listening in. Your presentation, your openness, your ongoing support is really tremendous. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And we all love Miss LaVenture. She is a product of the Malvern School District.
Kudos.
Okay, another question?
Hi, Miss. This is Miss Rivera, Deborah Rivera's mom.
Hi, Miss
So
Rivera.
as you know, hi. So as you know, we are transitioning back into the district, and so I need to understand with him he would not be doing the AB schedule. That he would be part of that 5-day. Because my other children, I have chosen to put them virtually. I am a 3-generational household, so I have a big concern with COVID, unfortunately. So I need to understand. So he would be 5. Technically, he was considering going back if he can do the AB, but if not, then he understands that he will have to be home because of our home condition, our home situation.
Our special education classes are going to be in the high school 5 days a week, full days. Yes.
Okay, so then you guys would then go ahead, I guess, and then you would give us a schedule, and then would we be picking up iPads as we would like with Downey and Davidson? I'm picking up iPads, or do we just use our own personal laptops for the high school students?
No, he will get an iPad. What I would suggest that you do is participate in Dr. Romano's high school town hall meeting at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Don't have the information. You can, 2 things. One, when we're off here, I'll email you that information. Or if you get off before I do and you go on Twitter, I'm sure it's there under Malvern High School.
Okay, great. Okay. And then I'll look forward for special education instructions from you guys on his scheduling and who he'll meet with. Okay, great. All right. Wonderful. Thank you.
Welcome. Additional questions?
Yes,
Hi, Ms. Martini.
this is Fisherman.
Who's this?
Mrs. Fisherman.
Mrs. Fishman, how are you?
Hi. 2 questions. With him being in the inclusion class and with the services, are they in the same cohort or do they leave the rooms to go to the services?
They are going to leave the room to go get their service, yes.
Okay, but there's not too many classes moving and stuff like that?
Correct. Now, can you refresh my memory on what grade we're talking about? Because I know you. What was that?
9th grade.
9th grade. Yeah, correct.
Okay, so they're more fluid and moving throughout the building than the middle school would
Oh,
be.
no, I'm sorry. No, they're not more fluid. I mean, the majority is going to be in one location.
Okay. Second question.
But I would also encourage you to go to 6 o'clock too.
Yes, I'm planning on that. Also, with the time and a half testing, are they done through the class? And then what would their next class, how is that done?
Okay, so that is a opening question, but that's a great question for any parent that is maybe transitioning to a new building. So just like we had here in the middle school, at the high school, there is a test center. There is there's 2 people that run the test center. There's somebody on, I know Ms. Corbett is
leaving him space and he's not going in.
Well, then would they also be on WebEx taking tests or just in the classrooms?
I would check with Dr. Romano about how they are deciding when tests are going to be given.
So the extended time, would that be during the next class or that would be during his lunch?
It could be during an elective period, yes. Or lunch.
Okay.
Yes. That's
Okay.
what we do.
Okay,
And
thank
the
you.
center is, well, in the past, when kids were actually going into the cafeteria, the test center is right across from the cafeteria. So could eat and then finish their test. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
But I'm writing that down anyway, because I'm not comfortable with the answer.
Hi, Ms. Martini.
Yes.
Hi, it's Mrs. Forte. How are you?
Hi, Ms. Forte.
I want to piggyback on what everyone was saying, the phenomenal job special ed department has done during this whole COVID crisis. I am so happy to be in this school district. So I thank all of you. I do have a question. So I have one child. They're going to be going back in to the building in the fall. One is gung-ho, will probably be very excited about doing the 5-day instead of the alternating day, which is what he thought. The other one is very careful and nervous about not just him, but everyone else being able to socially distance. I think that it's best for the both of them to come into the building, but if there comes a time that I don't feel comfortable with it, and I feel that it's best for them not, I could put, how quickly I'll be able to do the distance learning immediately? Is that how that's going to work, or do I have to wait to the end of the quarter?
All right, two things. One, if any parent decides that they want to move into distance learning, you can do that. You do not have to wait until the end of the first marking period.
Okay.
But two, more importantly, I owe you a call back, and we should talk about that son, that concern, and how we're designing his schedule anyway.
Right, got you.
Right?
Okay.
So
yes.
we'll have a lot of flexibility with that.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Good.
Yes, thank you.
You got it.
Hi, this is good call. Just want to just double check if our child is getting the special ed busing service. Do I need to fill out? I don't need to fill out the form online, correct?
The assumption is that any student that is entitled to transportation through their IEP, that we are providing a transportation for them. If you don't want it, then you would let us know.
Okay, thank you. And also, just jumping on, I have nothing but the highest regards of what the special ed, particularly in Herbert, because that's where we were, their teachers were just phenomenal. So,
it means a lot.
Like, above and beyond, like, really above and beyond. Thanks.
Okay. More questions?
Sorry if I make you cry.
Yes, Ms. Dubas.
Everybody good?
Yes.
Non-mask wearers. My son will not wear a mask. They worked on it with him over the summer, desensitizing him to it. We'll be working on desensitizing him to it, and how much will he be required to actually wear one?
Okay, so the guidance document, page 39, says that if due to a physical or mental reason, the child cannot wear the mask and it will disrupt their education. Obviously, the guidance document's language is a little bit articulate than me right now. Then they are not required to wear it. So, so I think it's important for, especially knowing how much that has been worked on with your child over the summer, going to a summer program. I think it's important that you maybe just send me like a quick email, any parent that has that concern, so we can open up that, process in terms of what that may be like. Because obviously coming from a special education lens, it's not going to surprise me to have that kind of process, but I think it's important that we destigmatize this for our other families, so that it's understood, same way that when you walk into a supermarket now, see somebody without a mask, what's going on here? So I think it's important that we have a process in place in terms of continuing to desensitize them for it, because it's for their safety. And we can make that part of, one of the goals that we're working on with them, as well as making sure that, the community as a whole understands it.
And just to piggyback on that, the special ed bus, they'll obviously know about his not wearing a mask and all that other stuff that I'm not going to have to worry about on the first day, right?
Correct. But if any parent I mean, do not hesitate to send me an email or give me a call. I mean, in terms of, just assuming, or, I don't mind friendly reminders. I don't mind non-friendly reminders. So it's better that we cross our T's and dot our I's.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
You got it.
Miss Martini,
Yes,
Paulina Montalvo, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's nice to see you. Nice to see everybody, actually.
I agree.
So I guess one of the things that concerns me most, obviously you're familiar with Joaquin, and so he's going into the 5th grade in a inclusion classroom. The children have always had the, how do I say it, the flexibility, the opportunity to move around in the classroom. You had, your stand-up desk, you had your chairs, your bean bags, and things like that. And to be perfectly honest with you, that's probably my biggest concern with Joaquin returning to the classroom right now. I saw Miss Gross' wonderful presentation. I absolutely loved it. The pictures, everything. I see the classroom. I completely understand, the social distancing, but it does concern me a little bit. How is my son going to manage sitting in the same chair for the duration of the school day? Is that set in stone? They're not going to have they won't have the option like a stand-up desk or anything.
Right. So we had to set up the classrooms, obviously with the 6 feet distance, which meant that everything that needed to come out comes out. And with the stand-up desks, we had them in a room where any student that felt that they needed it could use it at the time that they needed it.
Right.
So that causes a bit of an issue with, who's there now, who's not there now, that kind of a thing with the transmission, the potential.
Right.
So built into the schedule are, the times where the students are going to be going outside for, their identified fresh air zones. I think we have to continue to be creative and maybe speak individually in terms of, it can't be the physical standing up and types of things. And and in his case, being a little bit older and more mature, what can we turn it into? What are things that we can do that would reduce the need for movement, more in terms of that will be solely at his desk in maybe like in a box that's just for him, or that goes to and from school for him.
Right.
So why don't we set up a time to talk about that?
Okay.
Okay. And then, all of these questions, as much as IEPs are eyes and individualized, there are other students that have similar needs. So we'll brainstorm, and then I'm sure there will be other families and students that benefit from what we come up with.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Also, I should, and obviously I don't know his IEP by heart, but any student that's, getting, OT and PT, we're going to be able to create those distances where they'll get some, movement. So, additional questions?
Hi, Mrs. Martini. It's Margaret Daly.
Hi, Ms. Daly. I'm glad you were able to get on today.
Thank you. And I also want to compliment, I had dealings with the Davison Avenue staff, Mrs. Romanoff, Mrs. Kenny, Mr. Brala, and they went above and beyond to help Erica so much, and I'm so appreciative of them.
Thank you for saying that.
Oh, you're welcome. My question is, if Erica starts in school and for some reason her cohort has to quarantine and they go into the distant learning, how does that work with her IEP, with the special ed teacher? Is there an inclusion at home teacher available?
Yes. So, it depends. If that entire class is quarantined for 2 weeks, then that team is going to be her distance learning team at home through WebEx.
Okay.
If for some reason she was a 1 and she had to be quarantined. That did not result in the rest of the class. Then we do have a virtual, a voluntary distance learning plan, and that she would phase into that.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And just one other quick question. The meeting with Dr. Romano tonight is 6 or 7?
I think it was originally 7 and they had to move it to 6. I see some of my high school people on here. If maybe I could get a confirmation through a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Thumbs up. Okay.
For 6.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Quick question.
Yes.
The inclusion special ed teacher, is that in the room with the regular teacher as well, like it's been in the past?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I learned from Mr. Brala, some silence is okay and to let it be for a few seconds. So, right, Mr. Brala?
Hi, Ms. Martini.
Yes.
My name is Brian Eng, and
Hi, Mr. Eng. How are you?
good, thank you. I just really had a quick question. I don't have a child in the program, but we were last year before all this happened. We were in the process of discussing it, with Ms. Matthew. My son is over at Downing right now, and about him being evaluated. How is that going to be handled this coming year, since we never did get the process started because the COVID struck?
Okay, so that can happen 2 ways. I'm sorry if I didn't hear you say that you either made a decision or not about your child coming into the school. If he's there, we're going to evaluate him with proper health precautions. If the student is staying on the distance learning, we will. I think it can go a couple of ways, depending on. We have permission to do it via what we use, which is WebEx, and that will be acknowledged in the report that we do write up, because typically everything is very standardized, and you want to have a part of the discussion in terms of the evaluation is that the environment was not standardized. Not that that's going to be the deciding factor for eligibility or not. It's just very important to have that as one of the variables. Okay. Or if the family decides they want to wait, then that would be up to the family. But that is just something you would have to communicate with me.
Okay. We haven't made the decision yet. That's why I was asking. I'm sure we're not sure if we're going to do the distance or the brick and mortar.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. More questions? No? I think I have to put my glasses on. I think we have a question. Elijah's mom, Mr. Damas, you're on mute. Let me unmute her. Mr. Damas? Oh, she wasn't even on mute. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. You can email me. How's about that? Okay. All right. Okay. Again, thank you so much for a 3 o'clock town hall. I really appreciate you taking the time to let me squeeze this into your day, because I did think I owe this to you. I'm a phone call away. I'm an email away. Your teachers that your child had last year, same thing. Even though you may not feel like you have established a relationship with the new teacher, I guarantee you the teacher that your child had last year is available for you right away and will ease any of your concerns or try to answer your questions or get to me. I also want to assure all of you that we talked during those transition meetings that the teachers that were going to be receiving your child were going to have an opportunity to learn about your child, not just from the IEP. And that did happen. And those were those occurred through WebEx at the end of the school year. Some of you that we needed to come up with more individual plans, that happened too. So I just want you to be assured if you were not part of one of those really specific ones that the parent had to be a part of, it happened globally for any of our students that were transitioning from one building to another. Okay. All right. And I thank all of you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Afternoon.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.